Just moments after the World Cup ended, the United States launched another wave of strikes against Iran. A massive blow in Iran. The United States destroyed the eyes of the Revolutionary Guards. Washington provides an update. We will escalate the strikes against Iran in the coming days. Is the United States preparing the ground in Iran for a doomsday strike? An attack aimed at eliminating the Revolutionary Guard's primary capabilities. The Revolutionary Guards are defying the American blockade and threatening that control of the Strait of Hormuz remains in their hands. The night of strikes against Iran has ended, and it proves that the United States military is not playing games. Nevertheless, the Revolutionary Guards are not intimidated by Trump. They continue to launch missiles and are pleased with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The Revolutionary Guards are exposing the espionage network that they claim helped them strike a United States Air Force base. A statement published on behalf of Iran's Revolutionary Guard said, "Thank you to the Jordanians who helped us." The United States evacuated forces from Jordan to Israel, and now the question is, what is the United States military hiding at the bases inside the Jewish state of Israel? Israel has put an end to the $3 billion monster. The Iranian-Korean mega project in Lebanon has reached its end. We will soon bring you all the details. And meanwhile, the agreement between Israel and Lebanon remains in effect. The United States will assist in dismantling the Hezbollah terrorist organization, while Israel will withdraw only after Lebanon dismantles the genuine capabilities on the ground. And the IDF is tightening the noose around the Hamas terrorist organization in the Gaza Strip. So will the conflict spread from our neighborhood, the Middle East, into Israel during this round as well? I'm Yair Pinto, with me is Shoshani, and we're here on Boots on the Ground, where we bring you the full truth about what's happening in Israel, as well as the full truth about what's happening in our neighborhood, the Middle East. Today is July 20, and this is our second report of this day, so let's begin. The World Cup is behind us, and so are the celebrations marking 250 years of American independence. Even the celebrations for the United States President Donald Trump's 80th birthday have ended, after being held with great pomp and ceremony. The United States midterm elections are still ahead of us. But from the perspective of the American administration, there is still enough time to act against Iran and defeat it. United States Central Command, CENTCOM, announced that overnight between Sunday and Monday, it completed the 9th consecutive night of strikes against Iran. And according to reports, several strikes were carried out against a missile site in the western Iranian city of Tabriz, and an explosion was also heard in the port of Mashhad. According to the Iranian Tasnim news agency, explosions were heard in Tabriz, Khabarad, Konrak, Bandar Mashar, and Bandar Imam Khomeini. The strikes continued into the morning hours, and around 9 a.m. Israel time, Iran's Maher news agency reported a wave of strikes at several locations in the city of Bashar, alongside explosions in Isfahan. The Revolutionary Guards claimed overnight that they had attacked an American base in El Tanaf in Syria for the second time. According to their claim, a surprise attack was carried out against the United States Special Operations Command Center at the base, at a revenge operation for the American strikes that killed Iranian soldiers near Iran Ashar. Iran International emphasized that this was the second time that the Revolutionary Guards had claimed to have attacked American forces at the El Tanf area since the latest escalation began. United States Central Command previously denied an earlier Iranian claim that the base had been attacked. So look, there is no symmetry between the American strikes, which are being carried out with breathtaking force, and the successfully hitting deep and significant targets in Iran, and the Revolutionary Guard's attempts to prove that they possess power against the United States as well. That is why they spend the entire day issuing grandiose statements about every strike carried out by a single drone. And during the morning hours, The Revolutionary Guards claimed that they had attacked Ali El Salem Air Base in Kuwait, destroyed an American radar system, and struck an aviation equipment warehouse and a hangar containing MQ-9 drones. According to the Tasnim news agency, several drones were set on fire in the attack, which was carried out in response to the American strikes against Iran. The Revolutionary Guards warned that the Strait of Hormuz would remain unsafe for the transportation of oil, gas, and fertilizers for as long as the American strikes continued and threatened punitive operations against the United States military. The American military, for its part, announced that it had no idea what they were talking about. The true significance of the events overnight is that the confrontation has long since ceased to be merely another series of limited strikes. This is an ongoing campaign in which both sides are operating almost every night, and every attack increases the risk of the conflict expanding into a much broader regional confrontation. In Washington, the strikes are being presented as a direct continuation of the policy of systematic eroding of Iran's military capabilities. And according to CENTCOM, the targets included command centers, missile and drone launch sites, communications facilities, radar systems, air defensive batteries, and capabilities used by Iran to threaten shipping routes in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. The strikes come after a series of serious incidents for the United States military, including the deaths of American soldiers in attacks attributed to Iran and to its proxies. The White House emphasizes that every attack against the United States forces will be met with heavier blows, while President Donald Trump continues to declare that he will not allow Iran to impose control over the world's energy routes. And on the other side, Tehran continues to present an uncompromising position. The leadership of the Revolutionary Guards repeatedly declares that as long as the United States continues its attacks, oil and gas tankers will not be allowed to move freely through the Strait of Hormuz. And at the same time, Iran continues attempting to apply military pressure against the American bases and against the Gulf states that cooperate with Washington. In practice, one of Iran's most significant achievements so far has been the disruption of the maritime traffic. The number of ships crossing the Strait of Hormuz has fallen dramatically. Many shipping companies are delaying voyages, and maritime insurers are rapidly increasing their prices. And at the same time, the United States is applying its own naval pressure against the Iranian ports. This has created a situation of mutual paralysis that is harming international trade. The latest strikes by the United States, Iran, and Israel are not limited to damaging the military targets. They're sending clear strategic messages to Iran and to Yemen. The isolation of the port city of Bandar Abbas may indicate preparation for a possible ground operation. Iran is sending a message to the Gulf states by striking infrastructure, while the exposure of the Israeli submarine indicates that Jerusalem is also preparing for the possibility of a broader escalation. So that's why the submarine has emerged in public. The United States President Donald Trump addressed the strikes against Iran following the World Cup and the final and told reporters, "We hit them very hard again tonight." And we did it in honor of the American service members who have been killed since Friday. However, the United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio said overnight that the United States remain open to a diplomatic solution regarding the Iranian issue. Jordan is now becoming a more significant focal point in the escalation between Iran and the United States. After 3 American soldiers were killed in the attack in Jordan, the Revolutionary Guards issued an unusual statement hinting at active spies inside the country. They said, "Thank you to the Jordanians who transferred information and helped us," end quote. And in Lebanon, the Beaufort Castle has stood since the 12th century on the Ali Tahir Ridge near the village of Arnon, overlooking the Nabtiach region. For hundreds of years, the site has witnessed wars, occupations, and exchanges of fire. But Israeli engineers are now facing a different type of challenge: how to destroy the enormous tunnel network that Hezbollah excavated beneath the ridge without causing the collapse of the Crusader fortress, which is considered one of Lebanon's historical symbols. Tough decision. And on the diplomatic front between Israel and Lebanon, the United States Secretary of State met last night with the Lebanese President Joseph Aoun and expressed support for his efforts to restore sovereignty, disarm the Hezbollah terrorist organization, destroy the terrorist infrastructure, and advance towards peace. The Hezbollah terrorist organization strongly condemned Aoun's visit to Washington. The tunnels exposed in the area are not merely another hidden shaft or a narrow passage designed for terrorist cells. According to the findings on the ground, this is an extensive underground system considered over nearly 2 decades. It existed and was developed with Iranian assistance as part of a project intended to provide Hezbollah with the ability to conduct prolonged war from beneath the ground. And against the backdrop of the threats from Iran and the explosive situation involving Hezbollah in Lebanon, the IDF continues to pressure and to pursue and prevent attempts by the Hamas terrorist organization, the Palestinian terrorist organization in Gaza, to rebuild and strengthen itself. Over the past month, the IDF has carried out approximately 300 targeted strikes, eliminating more than 250 terrorists. And we will soon bring you all the details. So, we have a great deal ahead of us. Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, with me is Mati Shoshani, and we're here on Boots on the Ground. We bring you the full truth about what's happening in Israel and about the war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, which is the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. And just before we begin, I want to call on you to continue spreading the truth. Share our content with as many people as possible. Hit the subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button. Yeah, that will help us a lot. You can also share this video with other people and leave a comment. Let me know why it's important to fight terrorists and why it's important to make sure that Iran does not have nuclear weapons and does not have ballistic missiles. Seems obvious, but I would like to hear you talk about it. And if you hear some trolls in the comments, then help us. Share the truth in the comments of this video. Because many Israelis are still juggling reserve duty while trying to get back to work and handle their day-to-day lives. It's not easy because your body is tired, your mind's overloaded, and the pressure doesn't stop when the uniform is coming off. I've been there. Coming home from reserves, if it's in Gaza or the northern part of Israel, trying to be present for my family, catching up at work while still feeling like I'm in a survival mode. It takes strength, energy, and faith to push through. And that's why I started using Vinia. It's an Israeli supplement made from red grape cells that helps improve the blood flow to your heart, brain, and muscles. For me, that meant better focus, more energy, and fewer days of that foggy, burnt-out feeling. You know what I'm talking about? So I started using it during my reserve duty, and I'm still using it today. There's also a coffee and a tea version that you can take in the morning, but give it a try for yourself. Go to TBNIsrael.com. Again, that's TBNIsrael.com or call 800-638-1944. So give it a try and let me know what you think about it. And now let's turn to our senior Middle East correspondent, Mati Shoshani. So Mati, after 9 consecutive nights of American strikes, is the United States attempting not only to destroy targets, but also to disrupt the Revolutionary Guard's decision-making process?
I think that's a great question. For several months, there was an equation between Iran and the United States, and it was give or take that the response was equal or similar to the attack that took place. That was the case in the past. That no longer is the situation between the United States and Iran, and definitely not the situation between Iran and Israel. Why? Because the United States has come to the understanding, and it's a very truthful understanding, that there is no point in reasoning with Iran, and there's no point at keeping things at a status quo level. What they need to see is that everything that they do, every act of aggression, is answered with a substantially more significant attack on their infrastructure and on quality targets. Now, the United States has been attacking in Iran for 9 days straight. 9 days straight. In the past, it was every couple nights. Now it's every night, throughout the night, going after substantial targets. This isn't a symbolic attack. This isn't for the sake of appearance. It isn't for the sake of saving face. It is to destroy and dismantle the infrastructure that keeps the Iranian regime ticking and moving forward. It's both a financial aspect of it that has been on the target list for quite some time, but it's also breaking the infrastructure that makes this war possible also in the future. What does that look like? It looks like preventing the Iranians from having assets on the beachfront, on the beach areas that would allow them to prevent and harm navigation and trade through the Strait of Hormuz, going after the command centers, the radar systems, the communication lines, after also the infrastructure, the bridges, the train tracks that allow them to move forces and logistics between places. This is full-on military wartime bombardment, not limited conflict, not semi-conflict, not symbolic attacks, substantial attacks against infrastructure with a clear message being presented to the IRGC, to the Iranian government, which is the following: we are coming for you. We're coming after your infrastructure. We're coming after your ability. We're coming after what you have that keeps you in power. And that's really the message that the United States is trying to get across to the regime in Iran. This isn't about just the pride and the public perception of this war, although those are important. It's about going after them in a significant, in a substantial, in a painful way that will teach them a lesson. Well, I don't know about once and for all, but it's definitely teaching them a lesson. One more important thing here is that the United States doesn't seem to be in a rush to try and enter an agreement once more. That was on the table previously. It's no longer relevant or concerning to them. They're fighting at a tempo, at a level of an aggression that prevents the Iranian regime from picking up its evil head once more, that prevents them from continuing to attack through the Strait of Hormuz, and that makes it clear to them that they will pay a price far more significant than what they expected, that will prevent them from continue fighting unless they stop their acts of aggression or come forward offering to re-enter into negotiations. One way or another, the equation is different than it used to be. It's no longer Iran gets to set the terms. It's the United States consistently and continuously attacking quality targets throughout Iran. Now, the Iranians are no suckers. They've been attacking too, and we'll get to that in a second, but it's a very different type of attack, much lower level of lethality, much lower level of accuracy in their attacks.
Mati, has Jordan now become the most sensitive point of vulnerability in the American campaign against Iran?
Up till this point, till about a week ago, the majority of Iranian attacks were against Gulf targets and specifically American bases and American-related infrastructure throughout those Gulf states. We're talking about airports, about bases, about communication nodes, about radar systems, specifically in the Gulf countries. And the United States, and this is really zooming out to how it operates in the Middle East, the United States doesn't have all its forces concentrated and focused in a single area, which wouldn't make sense. They're scattered throughout many different bases. Most of those bases have only essential personnel working in them, as in the people that are involved in refueling the aircraft, in operating the defensive air systems and the offensive air systems. But the people that have different types of jobs that can be done remotely, they're no longer in those bases. That's not the case in Jordan. Jordan was considered for much of this war as a country that is farther back from the Gulf, closer to Israel, outside of the arena of war, and the United States kept a substantial amount of forces in there. Now, I need to give you a number just for a second to help you understand how big the American forces are in this region. Right now, in Israel's main international airport, Ben Gurion, through which I'm going to be flying shortly on vacation, there is an enormous amount of American aircraft, so much so that if there's any more of them, it would prevent commercial flights from landing and departing from that airport. That's how big the footprint of the American army is in this part of the world. What I'm saying is all over the news. This is not classified information, if you're concerned. The same applies to Jordan. Jordan has substantial American presence in that country. It has substantial intelligence, substantial radar, substantial defense systems. And I want to talk about where it is positioned for just a second. Jordan is east of Israel, and the majority of the Iranian ballistic attacks, well, not the majority, all of them, are traveling east to west towards Israel. And if you want to intercept ballistic missiles, specifically the type that flies high and far, you want to be farther away from the target so you can intercept them farther away with longer advance warning time. And that's why there's a lot of air defenses in Jordan, a lot of bases in Jordan, and a lot of personnel in Jordan. Now, there's a couple more nuances to this story. The Iranians have made public the fact that they've been able to recruit spies within the country of Jordan that have been operating together with them. But guess what there also is in Jordan? A bunch of Iranian expats that are against the Iranian regime that have been posting stories, videos in recent days in Farsi, in their language, speaking about the Iranian attacks and about their opposition to the Iranian regime. So this is a more complicated story than what one might imagine, and it really spans the entirety of the Middle East, from Iran through the Gulf states, Jordan, and Israel. This entire arena, this entire area is under the pressure, under the fire of this ongoing conflict. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's missiles, sometimes it's terrorism, sometimes it's military naval blockades, and sometimes it's all of the above, because the war here is between powerhouses, the United States and its allies, and Iran and the countries backing it, the Chinese, the Russians, countries that support them financially and with equipment. This isn't just Iran versus the U.S. or Iran versus Israel. This is the Western free world fighting against the oppressive non-free world. This is what this war is, and it's being fought as a war of attrition, as a war of politics, as a war of terrorism, as a war of financial blockades and financial sanctions, and also through missiles, terrorists, and direct kinetic attacks. The war is all-encompassing, and the outcome of it will very much shape the world that we're living in for many, many years to come. So far, when it comes to the military victory, the U.S. has been overwhelmingly successful compared to that of the Iranian abilities. But we're not fighting a symmetrical war, we're fighting an asymmetrical war against Iran and their proxies. And even there, Israel and the United States have been, for the most part, incredibly successful in stopping those attacks and weakening their proxies. But this doesn't end when they're weaker. This ends when they stop being a threat. This ends when we can go back to normal life. This ends when Lebanon has a normal life, and Syria has a normal life, and Gaza has a different government that is not an oppressive, evil terrorist organization, Hamas, sponsored and paid for by Qatar and by the Iranians. And the same goes on and on for the Houthis in Yemen and for the Iranian people, of course. Iran is an evil, not a political party, not an agenda different than ours. They're an evil powerhouse, an evil superpower that is trying to bring destruction, death, and suffering to the world that we live in, and they need to be treated as such and fought as such, with aggression, with ruthlessness, and with grit to bring them down all the way. Because that, and only that, is the only way to stop such a regime such as that in Iran. And I want to say this, it might feel complex, it might feel nuanced, it might feel confusing, but we are doing the right thing. The U.S. and Israel are fighting against the bully, the evil, the most corrupting power of our lifetimes. And we're going against them, knowing full well that it would not be easy, knowing full well that it would be painful and expensive. And yet, President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu did the right thing. They stood up to the bully, stood up to the evil, and did so with consistency, did so without blinking in the face of danger, and did so while protecting and fighting for the freedoms of people around the world.
While Iran is preventing Hezbollah from violating the ceasefire, has a rare operational window opened for Israel to dismantle the terrorist infrastructure in southern Lebanon before the axis is awakened.
Lebanon is really indeed this complicated and very interesting question on multiple different levels. The natural thought progression would be that now that Israel has a peace and quiet period in Lebanon, where the eyes of the world are focused on Iran and what Iran is doing to the other Gulf states in Jordan, now is the time to dismantle Hezbollah infrastructure. And the U.S. government is supportive of that. You'd be surprised to hear. Marco Rubio has repeatedly spoken on this topic, spoken about the need, the desire, and the legitimacy of going after Hezbollah infrastructure. But let me really present you with a problem here. I think this is the wrong way to look at this. The right way to look at this is to go after Hezbollah, not just their infrastructure. Because there's a ridge, Ali Tahil Ridge. They built an entire underground city. There's the Beaufort Ridge. They built an entire complex, and it was aided by the Koreans or the North Koreans. It was aided by the Iranians, whatever. the logistics are known. They've built, at the cost of billions of dollars, built unbelievable terrorism infrastructure and deeply embedded themselves inside the population. And they did this throughout southern Lebanon. So is the solution, which is what IDF has to do now, to force out Hezbollah, push the population, and destroy their infrastructure? Or maybe we go at this from a different perspective. We remove Hezbollah. Now, I continuously say, every time we talk about these topics, that the only real long-term solution, the only real solution is geopolitical. It's a political solution. Hezbollah, and I say this openly, if today the IDF blows up all these bomb mountains and these infrastructures that Hezbollah built, the rocket silos and the drone manufacturing facilities and the hiding places for the anti-tank units and the sniper nests, literally you could destroy half of the country of Lebanon. And if we pull out, Hezbollah once again embeds themselves in the population. So what's happening here? The population is being punished because Hezbollah is a terrorist organization that uses the civilian population as a human shield. Wouldn't it be easier to remove Hezbollah? Shouldn't the focus be to drive out this disease from the country, to drive out this evil force, which is Hezbollah in Lebanon? Shouldn't that be the focus? And the answer is yes. And also, that is what Israel is doing, and that's what the United States is doing. We are working hand in hand with the Lebanese government, hand in hand with the Americans, to try and create a coalition that is able to create the political, the financial, and the military backdrop that allows Lebanon as a country to stand up, to rise against Hezbollah, to force them out of the country, to prevent their ability to continue harming and fighting the infrastructure, the people, the government of Lebanon, and solve the entire picture that way. Hezbollah is falsely perceived as a freedom fighter organization in Lebanon, as something that is there to fight for the people of Lebanon. That's not what they are. They are a foreign mercenary force in Lebanon. They're paid for, sponsored, and trained by the Iranians. They fight against Israel, not for Lebanon, not for the people of Lebanon. And they should be treated as such, as a foreign disease that should be removed from the sick body of Lebanon, so Lebanon can rebuild itself, so Lebanon can be independent, so Lebanon can be free once more. That should be the situation. That should be the decision. That should be where Lebanon is pushed towards. So yes, the IDF needs to continue fighting against Hezbollah and destroying its infrastructure. But at the same level of intensity, the global community should be pushing towards a political long-term solution for Lebanon that makes sure that Hezbollah is no longer welcome, present, or legitimate in that country. That should be the end goal. That and only that should be the end goal. With the French government, without the French government, with the US this way, with the US the other way, it doesn't matter. Let's just do it. Let's just fight for what's right long-term for the people of Lebanon. And I'll tell you by extension, it's the same answer for everyone. It's the same answer for Hamas Gaza. What the people of Gaza need is Hamas to be removed and replaced by a better government. What the people of Iran need is the Iranian regime to be removed and replaced with a better government. What the people of Yemen need is a terrorist organization, the Houthis, removed from the country and replaced once again with a legitimate, democratically voted in government. That's what these people need. It's not just wars that they need to fight at that enemy, although sometimes you need war to fight that enemy. We need to remove the scorn, the disease, the tumor that is these terrorist organizations from these countries so they can once again experience freedom. And Lebanon is, I think, the best playground to test that theory. It's the first time that a country wants to expel the terrorist organization. And believe me when I say this, they really want to expel them. They really want to be done with Hezbollah. They can't wait to be gone with Hezbollah as a country. The problem is Hezbollah is well-equipped, well-funded, and well-trained by the Iranians. They need our help to remove them. They need the United States and they need Israel to be able to expel those people from the country. And it's about time that that happens. The US and Israel will be tested in Lebanon on whether or not we can not just fight, but can we help them rebuild their nation? And guys, the Lebanese people are being actively tested right now. Will they stand up to Hezbollah? Will they fight against Hezbollah? Will they sacrifice to expel Hezbollah? Or will they just rely on Israel and the United States to do their dirty work? That is a question on the table right now. That is the test. That is the watershed line presented to the Lebanese government, people, and the international community. Not just what Israel is doing, but what are you willing to do to solve this problem that is Iranian proxy warfare, that is Hezbollah, the terrorist organization that has destroyed the nation of Lebanon time and time again. This is the test time, and we're going to be tested on what we're willing to do to remove Hezbollah. Israel has already given that answer. We fight against them because they're an evil that needs to be removed. The United States, same. What about France? What about the UK? What about Lebanon? What about the international community that loves to wave their human rights flags? Where are you now when it's time to stand up to Hezbollah? That is the question, that is the test, and we will all be measured by what we did to help our neighbors in fighting against that foreign evil that is present in their country.
Thanks so much, Mati. That really helped us better understand what we're facing, what we're dealing with. And to all of you watching us, help us share the truth again. Best way to do it is hit the subscribe button. Second best way, share this video. Third best way, leave a comment and like. I don't know if I got these order correctly, but anything you do will help us share the truth. The best thing you can do is pray for the situation. So by sunrise, the purpose of the American target list was becoming very clear. This campaign is no longer focused only on launchers that are aimed at ships. It's attacking the system that allows the Revolutionary Guards to detect the target, approve an attack, move weapons, and fire again. The clearest example is the strike on the maritime surveillance tower at the Shahid Kaltantari port in Khabar. For years, the facility operated under apparently civilian cover while giving the Revolutionary Guards a military picture of the Gulf of Oman and the approaches to the Strait of Hormuz. The tower reportedly combined long-range radar, thermal cameras, night vision systems, electronic surveillance, and automatic identification system data. AIS is the signal commercial ships that use to broadcast their identity, position, course, and speed. In military hands, that information can help track a vessel and pass coordinates to coastal missiles, drones, or fast attack boats. A sensor finds the target. A command center confirms it. Communications transfer the order. A weapon receives the coordinates and fires. The United States is attacking several links in that chain at once. Destroying one tower does not blind Iran. The Revolutionary Guards still have mobile radar trucks, coastal stations, surveillance vessels, and other sensors, but removing a major force will make them rely on smaller systems with shorter range, weaker communications, and less protection. The same logic explains the pressure around Bandar Abbas, and the American strikes have hit bridges, railway connections, roads, tunnels, communications infrastructure, and coastal positions supporting Iran's main naval command near Hormuz. A damaged bridge does not stop every vehicle. It forces heavy equipment onto fewer roads where convoys can be tracked more easily. That is battlefield preparation, but it is not proof that the ground invasion has been ordered. The immediate objective is isolation. Washington wants to slow the movement of anti-ship missiles, air defensive batteries, fuel trucks, replacement radars, and drone components towards the coast. The strike pattern has also moved beyond southern Iran. Targets were reported near Tabriz, Bushehr, Mash'ar, and Kunrak. Tabriz matters because it is connected to Iran's missile infrastructure and sits far from the immediate battle over Hormuz. The message is that distance inside Iran no longer guarantees safety. Iran is answering by attacking the regional network supporting the United States. The Revolutionary Guards claimed that they destroyed an early warning radar at the Ali El Salam Air Base in Kuwait. They also claimed that they struck an aviation parts warehouse and a hangar containing MQ-9 Reaper drones, setting several aircrafts on fire. Those claims have not yet been confirmed, but the most provocative statement concerned Jordan. The Revolutionary Guards thanked what they described as Jordanian citizens and soldiers who supplied precise information. They claimed that the intelligence helped them strike 20 hangars used by the American forces near El Azraq. They also claimed missiles hit C-17 transport aircrafts and P-8 maritime patrol aircrafts near Aqaba. There's no independent confirmation that dozens of Americans were killed or that those aircrafts were destroyed. The confirmed picture is already serious. 3 American service members were killed, in the latest attacks in Jordan. Another American was killed in Iraq while handling the remains of a downed Iranian drone. The total American military death toll in the wider conflict has reached 17. Jordan has become a central hub because it offers access to Iraq, Syria, the Gulf, and the air corridor towards Iran. The Pentagon moved forces from more exposed bases in Bahrain, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. That reduced some risks, but concentrated the aircraft, helicopters, intelligence, assets, and personnel at bases that Tehran can study. Iran is combining ballistic missiles with one-way attack drones. The missiles descend at a high speed, while the drones fly lower and slower. When both arrive within the same defensive window, radar operators must separate different flight profiles and assign the correct interceptor to each threat. At sea, the picture remains incomplete. The Revolutionary Guards claim that they stopped 2 tankers that attempted to use the southern route through Hormuz without the Iranian approval. Separately, a vessel was reported burning 8 nautical miles northwest of Qumrzar, Oman. The cause has not been verified, so it cannot yet be presented as the same incident. The United States says that its naval forces remain focused on enforcing the blockade and protecting the shipping. On July 19th, 6 commercial vessels were redirected from their planned routes, and Iran says that the strait will remain unsafe for oil, gas, and even chemical fertilizer, while American attacks continue. Brent crude has moved above $90 per barrel as shipping slowed and insurers raised operational costs near Hormuz. A delayed tanker can affect fuel prices, electricity generator, food, transportation, aviation, and industrial production far beyond the Middle East. What you see here on YouTube is only part of the story. You can get a closer first-hand report, behind-the-scene moments, and stories of faith, resilience, and hope from Israel by going to tbn.org/journeys/boots. That's tbn.org/journeys/boots, or text boots to 316-316 for direct updates from TBN Israel. Again, that's with Mati Shoshani, the one and only, and me, Yair Pinto, that we are reporting directly from the ground. You're not just watching the news, you're witnessing what's happening here. We bring honest, first-hand coverage from the ground to all of you around the world so that you'll know what's happening here. If you want to help us, hit the share, hit the subscribe button, and let us know where you're watching from. Because this is a war over the truth, and this is a war, a spiritual war, and we need your help in prayer. So the diplomatic channel has not completely closed. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that Washington remains open to a real agreement that Iran will honor. Iran's foreign ministry says that proposals from mediators to reduce the tension are under review. Neither statement has stopped the missiles, the drones, or the nightly strikes. And Israel is preparing for a rapid change. American equipment and munitions have continued arriving, and 10 additional aerial refueling aircraft reached Israel from Europe and the El Ubaida base in Qatar. Tankers extend the range and the time on station of fighters. They do not prove a decision to strike nuclear targets, but they give commanders more options. For now, Washington prefers Israel to remain outside the direct exchange. That could change if Iran fires towards the Israeli territory or activates another front. IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir said that Israel is monitoring the launches near Aqaba, maintaining high readiness, and prepared to return immediately to intensive combat. Lebanon shows how military and diplomatic pressure are moving together. Secretary Rubio praised Lebanese President Joseph Aoun for efforts to restore state sovereignty, disarm Hezbollah, and dismantle its military infrastructure. The emerging framework links further Israeli withdrawals to practical action by the Lebanese state and army. President Aoun wants the first withdrawal from a pilot area in southern Lebanon to begin the process. Washington's position is that Lebanon must demonstrate Hezbollah's weapon, and they must destroy them. And underground systems will not simply return after the Israeli forces leave. So that challenge is a visible challenge beneath the Beaufort Ridge because Israeli forces uncovered a tunnel network built over nearly 2 decades with Iranian funding and outside engineering knowledge. Some sections were dug approximately 40 meters into the rock. The complex includes command rooms, weapons storage, medical facilities, living areas, power, water, ventilation, and routes for moving fighters unseen. One unusual discovery has an underground air defensive systems, anti-aircraft guns that were positioned on rails inside the mountain. Operators could move weapons towards a firing opening, engage from a protected positions, and pull it back underground. Other tunnel complexes near Kantara required more than 470 tons of explosives to destroy the production and affect a measure above 3.4 on the Richter scale, basically similar to an earthquake. So the Beaufort network is different because a large blast could damage the 12th century fortress above it. Engineers are examining controlled demolition, sealing, and concrete filling. The full Hezbollah underground project is estimated to have cost between $1 and $3 billion. Iranian money, North Korean tunneling knowledge, and civilian construction fronts that help turn villages and ridges into protected military zones for terrorists designed to preserve command, weapons, medical care, and launch capabilities. Pressure is continuing in Gaza. Southern Command's File Center, working with Israeli intelligence, the Israeli Security Agency, and naval intelligence, has carried out roughly 300 targeted strikes and eliminated more than 250 terrorists. Since June 15, approximately 60 military operatives were eliminated, including members of Hamas's secretive naval Nukhba unit. Overnight strikes destroyed a weapons warehouse, a weapons production facility, and a launch site. The campaign is intended to stop Hamas from rebuilding command networks, smuggling weapons, restoring tunnels, and gathering intelligence and Israeli forces along the Yellow Line. Plans are also being updated for a possible return to high-intensity fighting. Iran's pressure network is being challenged further south. In Yemen, Houthi forces attempted to seize positions in southern Hodeidah. Reconnaissance units detected the movements, and troops from the 14th Infantry Bridge forced them back. So earlier clashes in the same sector reportedly killed 15 members of the anti-Houthi force and more than 50 Houthi fighters. These fronts are not necessarily controlled from one room in Tehran. Their connection is strategic because Iran built partners, maritime threats, missile forces, tunnels, and supply routes, so pressure could continue even when one area was damaged. The next decision will determine whether this remains a campaign of controlled isolation or becomes a direct attempt to break the Revolutionary Guards as a functioning military force, and if Iran decides that its regional network is collapsing, which front will it activate next? Let me know what you think. And for now, if you want to help us, hit the subscribe button, share with your family, with your friends, with anybody who's watching, and above all, continue praying for the situation. When you pray, think about the service member that is in the sun, gardening, or waiting to receive the order to carry out a strike against Iran, to fuel the airplane, to do the daily jobs, and he's in danger. Pray for him, for his family member. Pray for the wounded U.S. personnel. Pray for the IDF soldiers that are now fighting in Lebanon. Pray for the Iranian people. Pray for the Lebanese people and government. And keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.